Hi and welcome to this segment of the Lotus Guru. This is covering 2015 up to 2017, what was happening with me and what was happening with Lotus. Obviously training was a big part of the year. I had 50 technicians in throughout the year from the UK, from Germany, Belgium, France and Italy. Now obviously UK is our go language, so is Germany. Italian and French was always a bit of a problem. A lot of the French people didn't actually speak much English. Some did, some didn't. The Italians even more so. So I needed help in this department from a lovely lady that worked in the after sales department called Sara Cabrini. She was Italian, obviously by the name, and she spoke fluent Italian and fluent French. She assisted me with the interpretation for the French and the Italian dealers. Now, Sara is not a mechanic. So I had to do a crash course in automotive engineering just so Sara knew what I was actually talking about. She took it on very well and she learnt a lot. Without her help I would have been lost, so thank you to Sara. Now in 2015 Lotus launched the Evora 400. So it was another iteration of the Evora to replace the previous model. Now some of the media stuff that Lotus put out, which I have here, said things like the all-new supercar from Lotus. Was it actually all new? Well, I don't know. 2/3 of the Lotus Evora 400 is new, including its supercharged and charge-cooled mid-mounted V6 engine. Was it? Well, if you want to find out, I will be doing a whole episode on the Evora, from the first Evora right up to the last Evoras, and I will be doing a fairly in-depth technical view of the cars, and I'll go through the changes then you can make your mind up whether it was an all-new supercar. The rest of 2015 panned out with my usual technical support to the after sales department, and I went out to the Middle East in Dubai to run a local training course there for the Middle East dealers, and later on in the year I flew out to Hong Kong to carry out some reworks on some Evora 400s. And finally for 2015 we can look at the limited editions and different models that came out in this year. And here we are, 2016. The year starts as usual with technical training. I trained 45 dealer staff from the UK and the EU. In March I go out to the Middle East, particularly to Dubai, to run the Evora 400 introduction for the Middle East dealers. Also visit our dealer in Dubai, which I must say is very nice. And in March I fly out to Lotus Cars Malaysia to run some technical training for the 14 staff that work at Lotus Cars Malaysia. Very nice setup, been there before, very good, but this time I stay in a really nice hotel. And in April I'm off to Japan again, this time to run training at the LCI in Tokyo again for the Evora introduction. I have 21 technicians turn up to that. And this time Gary Casks joins me, as he's been in the area, well in Taiwan, and he helps out with this course as well. As usual, we're looked after very well by the staff at LCI. We go out for dinner and a few beers, as you do, and we have a very good time. Now Gary's very into his cameras and his electronic gadgets. Now, ideal place is Tokyo, if you like any of that kind of stuff. There's a store called, hold on, Yodobashi Akiba, a 9-floor department store that has everything electrical, cameras, you name it. If it's electronic, it's in there. It's a massive place and we had a good look around there. In August I'm off to America again, to Lotus Cars USA. Now Lotus Cars USA has moved from Atlanta and is now based in Michigan. I have 35 technicians from the dealer network in America for the Evora introduction course. Dave Simkin, obviously, he's helping me again because he's my interpreter for the Americans, and we're joined by two technicians, Jamie Cave, he's an engineering workshop technician, and Mike Hall, he's a powertrain calibration engineer. They're there to look after the Evora 400s that are being used for a press event at the same time. While I'm there, I meet a guy who works for Lotus Engineering, a guy called Barrett Vance. Now, he notices one of my screensavers on my computer is a Lancaster bomber, and he asked me if I like Second World War aircraft. Well, obviously I do. He tells me he's a flight mechanic for a B-17 that flies out of Willow Run Airport. Now, Willow Run Airport, this is where, during the war, they built the B-24s. Now, in World War II, this was the assembly plant for B-24 Liberators built by the Ford Motor Company, and at the time thought to be the biggest factory under one roof anywhere in the world. The assembly line was over a mile long. Over 8,500 B-24 aircraft were built there, and one would roll off the assembly line every 63 minutes. So Barrett asked myself, Dave, James and Mike Hall if we'd like to go down and have a look at the B-17 that he looks after down at Willow Run Airport. Well, of course, we said yes. So we arrive at Willow Run Airport. Much of the old factory is gone, but it's still a very big building. And inside, we go in there, and there is the B-17 Yankee Lady. Also, there's a B-25 Mitchell, a V-77 Stimson, and a C-47 Dakota. I'm in heaven. Now it's about 30 degrees outside, and in the hangar it's even warmer. And then we all climb aboard the B-17. It's even hotter in there and stickier in there. We was absolutely soaked with sweat. But being inside the aircraft, it gives you an idea of what those young guys during World War II had to go through. The aircraft looks big from the outside, but inside it's very, very cramped. And I've only much admiration for the guys that actually flew those aircraft being shot at during World War II. My hat is firmly off to them. Now Barrett would fly around the United States in this aircraft with the rest of the crew, obviously, and promote and try and teach the history of what those guys went through during World War II. All those young men that came over here and gave their lives for our freedom. Sadly, I only found out recently that Barrett had passed away in December 2019. It was a privilege to have met him and know him and admire the things that he did to promote the sacrifices of those in World War II. My condolences to Barrett's family, and he will be sadly missed. And as always, we'll round off 2016 with some of the cars that were coming out of Hethel that year. Okay then, here we go, 2017 now. Training slackening off a bit this year. UK staff, EU staff, 16 go through Longwater this year. Trouble is, the Lotus haven't launched any new product for quite a while. And also, we haven't appointed any new dealers in quite some time. So, the numbers have fallen a bit, but there's always plenty for me to do, providing technical support for the after sales organisation. In July, I fly out to China this time, to a place called Tianjin, where I have to inspect cars that we've sold out there that are having problems with them. These are all brand new cars, not owned by people yet, but they are having some issues, so I'm sitting out there to try and find out what I can do for them. Now it's very hot in Tianjin, between 38 degrees and 42 degrees. I'm working in an open car yard with no shade whatsoever. It's very, very hot. I'm drinking probably every 10 minutes. Now I have to sit in the car to update the ECUs and TCUs, so it's even hotter inside the cars. In the 3 days that I'm there, I lose about a stone in weight. But I try to top that up every night when I go back to the hotel with some cold beer. From Tianjin I then fly to Chongqing, I think it's called Chongqing, where there are some cars that have been sold to a adventure playground, I suppose you could call it. It's basically a racetrack on the side of a mountain. Also it's very hot there as well, but the pits have some shade over it, so I've got some relief from the sun. Now these cars, they have mainly Elises, but one Exige automatic V6. One of them is misfiring. I then determined that it's lost compression on 2 cylinders, so I reckon it's been over revved and bent a couple of valves. The other 3 I managed to rectify, get rid of the mill light was on and get them running fairly well. The Exige, well, that had been taken straight out onto the track, used in manual mode all the time, so the gearbox didn't have any time to adapt, and it's actually fried the gearbox. The car revs, but it doesn't go anywhere, so the gearbox has to be replaced on that. Now I'm only there for a day and a half, so I can't help them with that, so they have to sort that out themselves. These cars are delivered to them brand new. They just took them straight out on the track, no PDIs or checks or anything, and then they wonder why they fail on them. After I'm finished in Chongqing, I fly down to Shanghai, where there are about 30 Exiges on the port in Shanghai that need the ECUs and TCUs reflashed for any problems they may have. This again is all out in the open, so the 3 weeks that I'm in China I do get a good suntan, but boy do I sweat a lot. It was an interesting trip to China. The guys there looked after me quite well. They took me out to dinner. I didn't really know what I was eating most of the time, but most of it had lots of chili and lots of garlic in it. But I did turn down the cow's lungs and the donkey meat. I didn't really fancy that. Another big thing that happens in 2017 is the acquisition of Lotus cars by Geely. Now Geely, the Chinese auto manufacturer, very big concern. They now own 51% of Lotus, and the other 49% is owned by a Malaysian conglomerate called Etika Automotive. So we now have an owner who seems to be very well funded and is quite happy to let Lotus carry on doing things the way they are, but in a much bigger way. Lotus builds an Evora for the founder and chairman of Geely, Mr. Li Shifu, and this is shipped out to China. I'm selected by the CEO to go out and oversee the handover of this car to the chairman. The car is initially sent to our importer in Beijing, so I meet the car there, carry out a 100% check on the car to make sure it's good to go, and then the car is shipped down to Hangzhou, where the headquarters of Geely is, and I will catch up with it later on. So the car arrives and I go to inspect it at Geely's headquarters. I spend a couple of days down there making sure the car is as perfect as it can be and wait for the handover to the chairman. There's one thing holding us up though. We haven't got the paperwork to register the car. So I'm dispatched back to Beijing to hand collect this paperwork. I wasted a day down in Beijing. The paperwork never turns up. So I go back to Hangzhou again and wait for its arrival there. The paperwork turns up. We get the car registered after a few technical issues with the car. Not anything wrong with the car, but just the way they register cars in China. And then I'm told by one of Geely's representatives that the chairman won't be there for the handover. He doesn't like any fuss, so my job is done. What I could have done in 3 days took 3 weeks, but I'm coming back to England, so I'm happy. So that was 2017, an eventful year, a couple of trips to China, which was quite nice, interesting to see the country and see how it all works. Good to see the Geely headquarters, huge building, so much money in that company, it's unbelievable. but it should be good for Lotus. We're all hoping back at Hethel. Anyway, so that rounds 2017 off, and as usual, let's have a look at some of the limited edition cars that were coming out of Hethel in 2017. So that's this segment finished. Next one to look forward to is 2018, 19 and 20. That will be the last episode of my journey at Lotus Cars. I hope you'll watch it. Don't forget, if you like these videos, please give us the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. More subscribers, better for me. So I will keep trying to entertain you as much as I can. So I look forward to seeing you next time. So long.